We're here this afternoon with Steve Newbrough of FindaGuitarTeacher.com, who teaches guitar in Asheville, North Carolina, and who runs the Summit Academy of Music. Good afternoon, Steve. Thanks for taking the time to talk to us today.
Thanks, James. It's a pleasure to talk to you.
I'm looking forward to learning more about your guitar teaching. Can you tell us first, I mentioned Asheville, North Carolina. Can you tell us more specifically where you're located, and do all your students come to you?
That's a great question. So I'm located just south of the southern part of Asheville in a neighborhood called Biltmore Forest. And so that's it's called Hendersonville Road. And I'm in a business building. It's called the 1095 building. And usually when I have new students come to me, I meet them in the parking lot because I'm in a business building and I don't like to have people try and find me in the building. Once you've been there once, it's easy to find. But if any of you who are watching came to take lessons with me, I would meet you in the parking lot the first time so you don't have to search for me.
Wonderful.
I have all of my students come to me for lessons. I would be willing to consider traveling for lessons, but it would be considerably more expensive just because of the time that it takes. But it's something I'd be willing to talk about with people. And
please go ahead. Sorry, I cut you off.
Sure. I do Skype lessons as well, but that really depends on the style. Depending on what a person wants to learn, it can be, in my experience, it can be very effective or not effective at all. I'm a classical guitarist, but I teach a variety of styles. When I've started to teach improvising on Skype, I've had a hard time. I think other people have done it well, but I like to play along with my students, and there's a slight delay, and that's gotten in the way in the past. So with different styles, I'd be willing to consider Skype lessons.
That's wonderful, Steve. And you mentioned that you teach a variety of styles. What are some of those styles that you offer? What are styles that students often request?
Sure. Well, people request everything, and I'm happy to do everything. I can start anyone on just about any style they want to learn. I'm a classical guitarist, and one of my strengths, and I'll get into this a little bit later, is developing classical technique. A couple of my students right now, and it seems like I always have several of these people, are older guys, anywhere from the late teens into the 20s and 30s. I actually have a guy in his 20s and another guy in his 30s right now who come to me who have learned some classical guitar, but they know that their technique isn't where they want it to be, and they're not able to do on the classical guitar what they want to do. And one of my strengths as a teacher is sharing the mechanics of how to work one's hands to play the most complicated pieces in the classical guitar repertoire. And even that can help you if you want to play fingerstyle blues or just anything. I will help arrange the mechanics of your hands so that you're moving as quickly and efficiently as possible and with the most ease of playing. So that involves some very complicated things with the hands, but I'm happy to teach people how to get started with improvising. I do not teach advanced jazz, but I can get people into jazz. I start with some modal improvising and with some simple tunes with simple chord changes. I love to help kids get started with rock. I know I've paid my rent a bunch of times with Nirvana songs and other Ozzy Osbourne. And then I also, going back to classical guitar, I teach young children. I can start kids out as young as 3 if they're ready. Some kids aren't ready at 3, but some are. I actually had a 2-year-old come in who would have been ready to get started, except they had to travel a long distance, so they didn't end up coming after all. But depending on the child and depending on the commitment of the family, music lessons can start very young. And for that, I use the Suzuki method, which is a method that uses the ear. So I have my students listen to recordings, and then that kind of unfolds into the child becoming a proficient classical guitarist.
Well, you really cover a wide range of styles and ages too. And you've mentioned your own classical playing several times. Would you like to play something so that people watching the interview can get a taste of your guitar playing?
Sure, yeah. Um, so, how does that sound through the camera?
That sounds great. And maybe move back even another 6 inches or so. Yeah, just to get your right hand in the picture. Great.
So, a lot of times, people will hear something like this. That's the beginning of Recuerdos de la Alhambra by Francisco Tárrega, the Spanish composer.
Beautiful piece.
Yeah, it is. And so they hear that, and that's what makes them want to play the guitar, or perhaps this one. And then later on you get to the... And so that's a very complicated thing to do. But I have a very systematic way of teaching people how to use their right hands, and the left hand too. I actually consider the left hand to be the easy part of playing the guitar.
Yes.
But I have a systematic way of training the right hand on being able to do these really quick arpeggios, or this one, which just makes lots of notes come out of the guitar really quickly.
Right.
And if you do those things well, it's really just a matter of opening and closing your hand. It's just a matter of learning how to do that, and utilizing the strong muscles in your arm versus the weaker ones. So I've helped a lot of people go from not being able to play very fast at all to being able to do anything they want with their hands. But it's a process. It doesn't happen overnight. And I ask students to do some difficult things, like back off and only play a few notes instead of a lot of notes. So it's a process if someone wants to get there. But I'm a classical guitar player, and so if I gig out, that's the kind of music I'm playing.
It's wonderful to hear you play. Your playing and the guitar itself really sound lovely.
Oh, great.
Well, I wanted to ask you about your lessons themselves. You're talking about the process and that it does take time, and that's certainly true with the guitar, with any style, but especially with the classical style. Wanted to ask you just about the scheduling of your lessons. How long are your lessons, and how often do you meet with students?
I meet with students as often as they want to meet. If someone wants to meet twice a week or 3 times a week, I've actually had that happen before. That's fine. I think usually once a week is enough. The last time I had a person coming for 2 lessons a week, they were doing classical one day and they were doing jazz another.
Interesting.
They were somebody who's had a big history with classical, and so they just brought their classical guitar one day, and then another day in the week they brought their electric guitar. And so that way they were in the right frame of mind each time as well.
Got it.
But that was a very special case. I really tell people to choose what you want to do, because the guitar is such a versatile instrument and there's so much to learn. And you can spend your whole life working on one style, let alone the tons of styles you can do. So I recommend at my first lesson, let's sit down and talk about what you want to get out of guitar. What's your end goal? And then we start from there.
And you mentioned on your Find a Guitar Teacher profile that the first lesson is a free trial lesson. Is that correct?
That's correct, because I may not be the best teacher for you. Mm-hmm. If someone comes to me and they're an advanced jazz guitarist, I am not going to be their best teacher. I have friends in town here in Asheville who are fabulous jazz guitarists, And if your knowledge of jazz is rivaling mine, then I don't want to take your money because I don't think that I'm probably the best person for you.
And
I can.
you'll recommend them to someone you know who could help them more.
That's right.
Hmm.
That's right. And meanwhile, I don't want to take your money for the one lesson that wasn't really effective for you. I only want to give you lessons when you're getting something from me. And then aside from that is I do like to talk about, like I said a moment ago, I want to figure out what a person wants to do in the end because that really establishes what it is that we're going to start with from the very first lesson. And if it's refining your classical technique, even if you've been taking guitar lessons for a long time, I may be asking you to do something very simple. Thus, you only would want 30-minute lessons.
Hmm.
So, and then as time goes on, when I feel like 30 minutes isn't enough, then we bump it up to 45 minutes or to an hour, depending. So I'm willing to teach a person for as long as they want, but typically most people are either at 30 minutes or at an hour.
And what are your fees for half an hour and for an hour?
Right now, well, I'm getting started at least. It's $25 per half hour, $50 for the full hour. I've heard some other teachers in town are charging different prices, and so I'm just I just moved here actually 6 months ago. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, I've only been in Asheville here for I guess since October of 2014.
Got it.
And so I'm still kind of learning about this area, and I think that my rates are competitive with other people, but still I feel like $25 for the half hour is a good rate for me right now. I'm happy with that.
That sounds great, Steve. And one more question before we stop the interview is your students coming to you will often want to purchase a new guitar or maybe their first guitar. Do you provide guidance to your students about purchasing equipment?
That's a great question. I do. I've even gone so far as to meet students at a guitar store. I'm still learning about the guitar stores here in Asheville. There's a
Yes.
couple really good ones. If they have a store preference, like if they know the guy down on the corner, then I'll go to his store with them.
Right.
And there's a lot of reasons for that. Hearing someone else play an instrument, I can play the instrument for them, and they can get a good sense of the tone, and then I can stand back and hear them play it. Uh,
Yes.
I think that's really effective. And I have a bad case of gear acquisition syndrome. So I love going to music stores, and that's really not a problem. In fact, I love it when students have that commitment that they want to buy a good instrument and they want to work with a teacher to help find the right one. I really appreciate that. So I'm excited to help people choose the right instrument.
That's wonderful, Steve. And I wish we could talk longer. It's so much fun to learn more about your guitar teaching. We'll wrap up there, but I want to wish you best of luck, Steve Newbrough. And with Summit Academy of Music in Asheville, North Carolina, you say new to the area. I want to wish you best of luck in your new area and with the music and guitar teaching. And that it's been a lot of fun talking with you today.
Thanks, James. I really appreciate it, and likewise.
Thank you so much, and best of luck. And we look forward to seeing you very soon on Find a Guitar Teacher.
Thank you, sir. I'll see you there.
Okay, see you there. Thanks, Steve. Have a good day.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.